Hi, my name is Bob Greenier, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 30th of March 2025 to O-Day, a little bit crazy. How is everyone out there in internet land? Can you hear me? Hi, Mr. Gate Mode, Ken Pratt. Excellent, Gordon Doherty, thank you for that. Hi, Artifact Bo Sinclair, Simeon, Simon Flynn. Hi, Marius Schmidt. Mick Avila is in the house. J. Kramer 121, Contraption, Terry Greenberg. Hello. Hi, JK Philly fan. Hi, Ken Pratt. We're all a little bit crazy. Yes, we are. And so what, is what I say. Anyway, my dad always used to say, and I've said it before, I'm not mad, let me out. I did love my dad. I do love my dad. So, the order of play today for a quiz 2 will be to go over crazy 1, just briefly, to see what I'm talking about here. In that, I will actually introduce a couple of slides that I shared earlier this week. Unfortunately, it was a bit difficult to share them because, unbeknownst to me, the building manager had halved the data rate to the building on the shared internet here. And so I had very poor audio. So I'm going to try and resolve that, but it was in the middle of the day and there were many other people here. So hopefully we don't have any contention problems right now. Then we'll talk about chaos. A little bit about chaos. And we're going to be looking back to, well, some of the oldest structures, megalithic structures on Earth. Hi, John Hutchison is in the house. Thank you for joining us. And then we're going to look at a bit of order and how that order can give us an application which I think is going to be extremely valuable for humanity. So, a little bit of crazy part 1. Yes, in this we had this Teutonic cross. And I got this from the electrical engineering exhibition at the Amberley Chalk Pits Museum in West Sussex. I took my daughter there many years ago, and this was the original order of electrical engineers. You will not find this on Wikipedia. And it has, out of darkness cometh light. Very profound words there with this Teutonic cross. And I thought, why did the Order of Electrical Engineers choose this particular cross and associate it with this? I mean, why? Why? Well, my investigations led me to this. And this is the Stela of Shamshi Adad. And it is from about 814 BC, so about 2040 years ago. Let's make that a little bit older. 2,840 years ago. 2,840 years ago. And this is not my photo. This is from their website, the British Museum, where it is. And this was actually the very, very first slide back on 9th of June 2017 that I shared that was anything other than what people would call pure science. We can't necessarily call it mainstream science because people don't believe in low energy nuclear reactions except those little crazy people. And so I just thought I would put this out there into the research group because of this. And close up with my own photo here is this Teutonic cross. Okay, and because of the cuneiform on the side, which is dated 1,000 years before, or rather used 1,000 years before, one can assume that this information quite likely is representing information from actually 3,840 years ago. 3,840 years ago. And one would imagine that if this was the end of a piece of culture, that it was actually well-known information for a very long period of time. So how long that is, we don't know. Thank you very much, Gary Johnson, for your £20 donation. That's very generous. So the second slide that I shared of anything other than what was coming out of experiment was this one in 4th of October 2018 in Sekonshare, which I presented in Sochi to the Russian research community. And I hope you've all had a chance to have a look at their comments on the Lena in geological processes that I had the opportunity to translate for you last week. Anyway, this is in in Italy. This photo by Luca Girelli. There's many of these on stones, and this is a solar cult. And supposedly this is how the sun works, according to this solar cult. And this is a few hundred meters from where my family asked me to bury or intern the ashes of my grandmother on Ilkley Moor. And there's actually a fake one out on the moor, and I think it's the original stone is in a museum. This is thousands of years old. This one up here, this is about 1,600 years old. So with those two in hand and experiments with my good colleague and friend Henk Urian, we had this Vega experiment where a hemispherical plasma orb destroyed this material here, made it disappear, and on the boundary layer under SEM we saw 2 order structures, 3 order structures, 4 order structures, 5, 6 and 8, and 8's got something else going on inside. 6 is the perfect balance with a circular hole, but the first time you get the power of God under control is with 4, and we explained that that's because at the fractal level, and I've also said that this isn't perfectly accurate because this is to the edge of the cone intersection with the circle, but it should actually go out a little bit further so that these spheres meet exactly in the center. But that being said, the disruption beam that comes out of the subtor goes into the non-radiating boundary of the one on the loop behind it, and so you don't get the disruption beams coming fully out, and you don't have a paisley, a vortex core at the center. You have a square hole, and so that's represented there. Now, whilst the Knights Templar and the Teutonic Knights were using the Teutonic cross, the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitalier, rather, were using the Teutonic cross. And whilst they first set up shop in Cyprus and then went to Rhodes and then went to Malta, this bowl here is actually made in Ionia, and it is from Rhodes, but it's 580 BC. 580 BC. So this would make it about 2,600 or so years ago. And that is a very long time before the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitalier were ever set up. But as we can see the very same kind of structure going on that is here in the core. And it's actually basically cut off, as you can see, around about this area here. Okay, and it makes sense if you look at these vortexes as the kind of vortex that goes down on this side and goes down on that side type of thing. Anyway, it's either a yin or yang, but this is the kind of thing that they were thinking about. And I went on to say that, you know, this is the God-controlled power, this is the power of the sun, and so forth. And so this here is a 4-4 structure, and this is effectively this. Of course, you could have 2 on the subtor to make a 4. That's okay, that's possible, but you know, you can only do so much with 2D. In 3D, you can start to see things in a whole new light. So this led me to show that the Teutonic cross, the symbol of God-controlled power, is exactly and precisely the center of the 4-tor structure. And as you can see, the non-radiating boundary intersections here and here and here and here are exactly these areas with that double there. Okay, all right. And we went on to say that this, therefore, in my view, explains the hitherto unexplained Sator-Rotas square, or Rotas-Sator square, because Jewish people read from top right and down. And where this was very first found was in Pompeii, in a building that collapsed in a time in an earthquake before Pompeii volcanic eruption, which meant that this is not a Christian symbol, although it was assumed by the Christians, and it was also assumed to be, for many years, a Templar magic square. And because we know these are vortexes, these are tornadoes, these are whirlwinds, and I believe this represents this. It allows us to decode, in my view, the message, and I decoded this on 21st of April 2024 in a little bit crazy as the divine creator, Sator, from alpha repeatedly to omega, a repo, comprehends and works with whirlwinds. Comprehends and works with whirlwinds. So that was the main conclusion of a little bit crazy part 1. Okay. Well, I'm just going to go and hello everyone. I'm going to go and pull up some slides in what am I going to do here? Oh, there. Okay. I'm going to pull up some slides from the presentation I gave the other day because I think it's useful. And this was, if you haven't gone and seen it, I'm sorry about the audio, but anyway, it has a couple of useful things on there. It was called Exploring the Source Code Technology, Fractal Toroidal Moment. And essentially, as we learnt from Dubovik, who discovered the toroidal moment, it comes out of a magnetic ring loop, and essentially we are looking at a current loop here, let's say, and a current loop there, and a current anti-loop there, and this produces a magnetic vector there and a magnetic vector there, and they get a magnetic ring, and that produces a toroidal moment. But this is more like a fractal toroidal moments because we've got some 2-level order fractal structures going down. And there was someone who, with a good number of expletives, said, what exactly is O-Day? And, well, I've always said, you'll know it when you know it, and you'll know that you know it. But it was effectively inspired by this fractal structure out of a plasma soliton. And here you can see the moment -1 coming up here. So if you go back here, this is the main fractal toroidal moment. If you've got a fractal toroidal moment -1 here, and then this is -2 coming out this way, and this is -3 here. And in this substructure, you have represented the minimum required to do a vacuum current that would occur in here, okay, or a magnetic phantom. Magnetic phantom is or electromagnetic phantom is what the Russians called it in the 1980s as part of the Soviet energetics research, and a vacuum current is what Freiberger called it at Stanford Linear Accelerator when he was describing how ball lightning can sustain itself in his paper in 2009. So you get a vacuum current, and what is that? Well, you have a wheel within a wheel within a wheel, a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And that is where you get essentially X, Y, and Z vectors, and they can lead to your the magic going on. Okay, so there we have it. Now, I actually the question is, what's the point of the O structure? Well, I believe this will permit us to have unlimited energy anywhere. Unlimited energy anywhere, because it can not only interact with ordinary baryonic dense matter, it can interact with the much more abundant dark matter in the cosmos, and by condensing that and gaining energy from that condensation process, it can get to a point where you have effectively what I believe is a real black hole in these cores, and they can then absorb all photons, whatever the photon is, whatever energy it is. And so you have basically unlimited energy. It will allow, because it's spin and because of the way it changes the permittivity of the vacuum, the dielectric constant, the physical vacuum, it will allow faster than light propulsion. It will also allow faster than light communication, because what comes into here and the toroidal moment that comes out here, it passes relic neutrinos through here, and the relic neutrinos go back into the condensate, but they are spun by the fractal toroidal structure here. And by managing that, you can encode information in extraordinary ways, because there can be up to 48, in my estimation, subtors at every level, and they can move the fractal toroidal moment at the highest level in all kinds of ways. So that, and because it goes into a superfluid condensate, the information is everywhere because it's a Bose-Einstein condensate, and there's no time delay, and also it can be uniquely encoded. It's not just the fact that it can be encoded in so ridiculously many ways and can persist for all time. It's that it can it's going into a condensate, so it's one wave function. It's available everywhere, but it's also about phase. It's like when you put it in there, because you can have a wave, and then you can have a wave coming behind it, if you know what I mean. So it's mind-boggling the amount of ways you can encode and store and retrieve information from this, in my view. It will allow for teleportation, because inside the bubble of these structures, which is effectively not shown here, but the bubble is a little bit outside that. We've seen that in other presentations. Because the space-time is changed in there, all of the rules are different, and the interaction, firstly on the non-radiating boundary, it doesn't present charge, so there's nothing stopping it going through anything else. But essentially normal space can't interact with the stuff that's inside it, and so I believe that's why Ken Shoulders, now Searles, and John Hutchison observed teleportation. essentially the communication allows interaction with the Akashic record. This is all of the thoughts that have ever been had by sentient organisms or non-biological life that have interacted with the ether, as it were, the Rayleigh neutrino elementary inductor capacitor dipoles, and it allows you to interact with matter and affect consciousness. So hopefully, for those that don't know what O is, this will help give a little tidbit as to what it should enable. If you don't understand this diagram, we can just go to the very basics of what a toroidal moment is, and that is a current loop producing a magnetic vector, a series at least of two magnetic vectors in a ring producing a toroidal moment. That's it. And when you get that structure and start compounding them with this simple rule of orthogonally arranging them, you get fractal toroidal structures. And we have Vladimirovich Dubovik to thank for that, and sadly he left us a little under a year ago, just after I gave my little bit of crazy presentation last year. So thank you, Vladimirovich Dubovik. But the answer is, of course, in our faces, because as far as I'm concerned, we are made in the image of the technology that runs the universe. So UFO says, Bob, what is the internal structure of a free-floating fireball? Is it a nested toroid? Yes, that's what I believe it is. I really do believe that is. So this Denaric skull here is the race of which Tesla was, at a time when basically only the Denarics were over 6 foot. He was 6'2". It's quite common for the Denarics to be over 6 foot. And you can see it's almost essentially a perfect match. Now, of course, they are in that area of Greece, sort of west of Macedonia, where and in Macedonia to a degree, the Denarics went down to the Macedonian area as far as I can recall. And these were the guys that minted pre-Christ the Thunderbolt coins with the Chi-Rho on them. And the Chi-Rho symbol is the symbol of the Epsilon team. It's in fact, they call it the double Epsilon. It is the symbol of Delphi. It's essentially the pictographic version of the owl. And the owl is the creature of Delphi. And that represents this geometry. And according to Epsilon team, they are they came to Earth 7,000 years ago, and they brought with the, or rather, they have knowledge of extraterrestrial origin, of technology of extraterrestrial origin. And you can see that the magnetohydrodynamic vortex is the yin-yang. It is a prototype for nature. It is exactly Tutankhamun, his faceplate. Very impressive. If you haven't seen that, you should go to the Cairo Museum. Yeonmi Park is North Korean, very, very close. And we have an Indian here, Deepak Chopra, and someone asked me, like, why is there no guys? And it's, well, okay, I'm a guy. So there you go. What can I say? Okay, so I am going to go back to a different part of this presentation, so if you'll bear with me. I'm just going to change the chat situation here so I can see it easier. Okay. All right, that's better. That's what I'm used to. Okay, so what are we going to look at here? Oh, actually, I'm just going to do a little bit of drawing for you, just for those people that really need to understand what's going on. Let's do that. Here we go. So, what's going on? Well, in an animation of this, I have showed that these things rotate around. These things here, this structure, this toroid here, and this toroid, and this toroid, and the little toroid that's in there, they all rotate around. However, when I did that during a session for Evo Labs meeting a couple of months ago, I said that they don't actually rotate. What they do is they cause a flux, and I believe it's a gravity wave that is going through, and the gravity wave is a flux of relic neutrinos, and this is compliant with the standard model and derivation that relic neutrinos are a standard model compliant model of gravity according to Bob McElrath of CERN Theory Group. And so what is actually happening, you're probably going to get a double helix, and I'm only going to draw one helix. It comes out here and goes down in there, and then it comes out of there, and then comes around here and in there. That's probably not really my best drawing in there, okay? Imagine that as a double helix, and you get in there. And then if we look a little bit closer in here, not here, same rules apply. So we've got our major double helix coming out of here and going off there. Maybe I can draw a double helix there for you. Right, so that's our gravity wave coming out here. And then we're going to have another double helix that's going to come all the way down and come back into here. Ministry of Rubbish Drawings. And then again, you're going to have a gravity wave that goes around here into here. And it comes back round here into there. And then there's a gravity wave that's going around there, like there, and then if you go right the way in here, there's another gravity wave that's going around here, and then if you go right the way in here, there's another gravity wave, and you get the idea. In and in and in and in and in. Okay. Okay. Does that make sense to people? Does that make sense to people? Yeah, that's the flux. Yeah, that's the flux. And so you can see that this would make it a very tight place in here and a very tight place in here. You have each time you end up with a stronger and stronger gravity vector. And the most strong gravity vector will effectively, the most stable gravity vector is in the smallest subquanta. But the most obvious one will be the one that comes out through here. So there. So you've got your LCs and your LCs and your LCs, and they are coming in with your spiral, golden ratio, cone, vortex into here. There is a degeneracy. You can only compress things so far. And there will be a focus beam that comes out the top. Okay. So at the highest level, you have this kind of thing going on. Stuff coming in here. And the ordinary matter gets bound in here, and the flux of neutrinos is going through here. Now, the vector might actually be for the neutrinos this way, and all other matter goes in this way. And I've argued that with respect to my early drawings in ultra experiments. So the actual vector of the neutrinos may be inverse. And there's a paper by Rodionov I think they spell it like that, Rodionov. And he argues that when the nuclear reaction occurs in here, it causes the neutrinos to shoot out this way that are produced in the nuclear reaction, and he calls it what he calls a neutrino rocket. A neutrino rocket. Okay. So it might just be that there is a flux coming in here and that some get spat out there. What we do know is that when these structures die, all of the material gets spat out, it would appear, from the way it went in. It all kinds of comes out through the way it goes in, which is that vector. Okay. So for those that not so politely ask me what is O, when you know, and it does take a bit of effort. Sorry. But you'll get there. Meanwhile, we can look at applications. But before we go there, we're going to look at something very different. I'm going to put my earplug in here, so hopefully this will work. Okay, so we'll go here, and we'll go here. So we'll pick up where we left off from a little bit of crazy one. The divine creator from alpha repeatedly to omega comprehends and works with whirlwinds. Now, last year I did what I usually do, that is to go to a archaeological site with basically zero investigation, so that I go in clean room, and it was one of the last sites that I visited. It's Hal Tarkshin temples, and these are actually very close to Valletta. Valletta is the city fort that the Knights Hospitalier and the Knights of Malta ultimately occupied for hundreds of years. And this was in the entranceway, apparently. This is the original stone. It's in the Maltese Museum in Valletta. And we have the vortex and the anti-vortex and this vector coming in here. And the label attached to this calls it the spiral. Inspired, eh? And they say the spiral design is an extremely eye-catching creation, which still attracts much interest and speculation as to its meaning. Recognized worldwide as a symbol of beginning and end of life. Very much alpha and omega. Or eternity. Well, I would certainly say it enables eternity. Is its conspicuous presence in temple decoration, ceramic design, and other artwork suggests that the image had a significance that was common to the Maltese Islands, very much like language. Okay. But this wasn't the first temple I visited. Like I said, it was practically the last. I actually visited this temple. And this temple is called Hagar Kim. Hagar Kim. I guess before we go there, no, I'm gonna just go straight into this. We visited Hagar Kim, and actually Hagar Kim is 3,600 BC. That makes it 5,600 and a quarter century old. Okay, and these temples on Malta, until they found Göbekli Tepe, were the oldest structures, megalithic structures known on planet Earth. And here is a model of Haga-Kim. And the large temple here is facing the equinox sunrise. I can't remember which one is the spring equinox and the autumn equinox over here. And this is the summer. Okay, so it's aligned with the precession of the sun in the sky. And I think the oldest temple is this little one over here. Might be wrong in saying that. But the first temple I walked in, which is the second one I'm going to show you a video of here, is this one. And I left my wife down here and my kids were going over into this one. And I walked up here and I walked into the temple entrance here. And I just looked right and I looked left and I'm going to go beep. I said, holy beep. This is an energy structure. And I just turned around and I swore again in my shock to my wife that was down here. And I said, can you bring me the tripod? So I set up the tripod here and the microphone that I have on me now, and essentially just walked in and started doing a video. I'm going to show you a different video, which was the first one I walked in, because I was so excited, because, and you'll see it in the video. But first, I'm going to show you this temple here. And here is the entrance to the temple. And in theory, the audio will play.
So I think this temple, which is a better energy structure shape, is properly constructed with the central channel and the two holes where the flux would go into the circular vortex and anti-vortex on both sides. And actually on the right side here you can see where the fluff has collected in one kind of vortex area and this bit of grass in another. That fluff is in the centre of the vortex, and that's the back part of the energy structure.
This is the first temple I walked into here. And
here is the bigger energy structure, and over here is one of the sides. I think there should be another side there with the central channel. And if we come in, you can see that we have an area for a vortex to form on this side. And indeed, a little while ago I saw the seeds, a bit like dandelion seeds or like some sort of fluffy seeds. They were moving around in a vortex on the ground. Okay, and you have the counter vortex on this side, and then you have these offset areas, and this may actually be an original temple and they built this other one on in front, but that's the side entrance here, that's the central entrance, and I think where this big slab is here, and possibly the one adjacent, that has been put in with the reconstruction on the outside. It's very, very poor, or maybe on reconstruction at some point. Come through to the back area, which may have been the original energy structure. Again, you have the vortex area and the anti-vortex, or vice versa, and the accumulation point. So I think these are in fact ether energy vortex temples. Now, which direction is that facing?
so I'm going to show you what I mean. I'll go back to this temple here, this one here, the first one of the two that I've just showed you. And what are we looking at there? Well, we are looking at, in my view, a perfect rendition of this structure here. Vortex, anti-vortex, and then the central focus of the energy channel. Vortex, anti-vortex, central focus of the energy channel. Now, I want to show you two other points. This is on the Amarzagas exposed tungsten, and here is the extraction area. This is coming in. I believe they have 3 doors because you have the channel that goes through and you have the vectors for the golden ratio lines. And then you have this gyro center, and a little bit above here is where you have your altar. The same kind of thing is what you have in a Christian church. And so that's the energy flux. But there is a helical beam coming out of at this point. And it's from you take the golden ratio line here, and just off the center here, you've got this helical beam, and it's actually cutting through the tungsten. And this is a coherent matter wave, in my view, of the chi. This effectively is a gravity impulse that's coming out of here. Notice it's not on this side. It's not on this side. It is only on this side. We saw the same thing occurring in the breakup of a Henk-Uren ball lightning. Here you have the tornado, the vortex, the whirlwind coming in to the head of the caduceus. This is the phase singularity where the topological monopole is, and the structure that was there came over here, and this is where the stuff gets fed in. This is the spewing out of that. But there's a substructure that was here. This little ball is actually on this side, the one that came from this side in my view, and it's bound to it. But this one came out again. Golden ratio line, and it's inside the golden ratio line, and you have the core that was over here. And so you have this flux coming out here. When this dies, this shoots out this way. Okay? And so we have at least 2 cases where the decay causes a beam to come out of here. And on that basis, I want to show you the Hal-Tarxene temple, which is 3400 BC. And why is this so important? It's so important. It's almost like an amplifier. It's like an amplifier. This is an etheric vortex amplifier. Let me have a look at the top here. So you have your chi coming in here with your vortex and your anti-vortex, and then that amplifies and fires through here. You've got your vortex and your anti-vortex, and at that golden ratio line, okay? At that line, it's inside the golden ratio golden ratio would be there. At that line, you have what would be the focused chi beam coming out here and going into this second series of amplification. I believe that this place would be a pretty crazy place to be if this was properly functional. This is incredible to me. Incredible to me. When I was, I came home the night after visiting Hagakim, some of the oldest temples, the Menadra temples here. And having seen this and gone in here, and literally, I walked through this door and I looked left, and there was a vortex going around this way, the correct way, with all of these fluffy seed in it. And I just stood there and I looked there, and it almost brought me to tears, because I thought, how has no one noticed that this is an energy structure since it was uncovered more than 100 years ago? How is that even possible? And so I went home, and actually in the early 1910s, I think, someone actually had suggested that this was an energy structure. And like I said, when I was in the temple, and I played the video again, this roughly and poorly blocked up area here, I think should have been a entranceway like that as well. Okay. So, whatever. this is a very deliberate structure, and this is a prototype for the whole thing. And this would be the most simple kind of energy structure you would build. So you would have your core of your vortex here, and your beam coming down, and another beam going back up there, and in your golden ratio lines, and the central vortex coming through into the focus point. Liam Weaver says, Bob, when you say it's an energy structure, do you mean storage, transmission, and communication? Well, if you've got a high degree of chi, then you should be able to become more holy. Become more holy. That is to say, you get a higher connection with God. And when I say God, I mean source. I mean everything. I mean the conscious field. Okay? So these structures, to me, show a mind-boggling, absolute mind-boggling understanding of the way that the universe works. And it's the oldest megalithic structures on Earth before they found Göbekli Tepe. Now, we've only uncovered a very small fraction of Göbekli Tepe, and everyone has a beef about the fact that they put these canopies over Göbekli Tepe. Well, you can see photos in the National Museum of Malta where they show some of these structures when they were originally uncovered, and the damage that was done in just a few decades because of the weathering. And that's in part why they took all of the key structures inside the museum to protect them. They took them inside the museum to protect them. So the weathering can affect them really rather quickly. You could have probably, it might have been the case that when these were actually used by the people that built them, they might have covered the outside with some sort of weather system, weather protection system. It could have been, daub, clay. It could have been wood. It could have been, straw, whatever. But because these are monuments, you don't know, and so you put up what you think you should have there. They could have been embedded into the ground, right? It might have been why that they ended up being buried for most of their existence, because they were already buried. And so the outside would not have got damaged, and the inside was maybe shielded. And so we are literally at the beginning, in my view, of understanding how incredible our ancestors were in their knowledge of how the universe worked. So I'm going to play these two videos again, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the things in the Haltarkhseen complex. I have a ridiculous amount of material to share from our trip to Malta, and I have to thank my wife and my kids for putting up with me, because it was 40 degrees centigrade, and although the hire cars were all meant to be white, we for some reason got a black one, and so it was basically like going around in an oven to ridiculously hot temperatures. It was relentless, and my family were absolutely legends, so thank you to my kids and to my wife for putting up with this work. All right, so let me show you this again.
So I think this temple, which is a better energy structure shape, is properly constructed with the central channel and the two holes where the flux would go into the circular vortex and anti-vortex on both sides, and actually on the right side here you can see where the fluff has collected in one kind of vortex area and this bit of grass in another. That fluff is in the centre of the vortex, and that's the back part of the energy structure. Here is the bigger energy structure, and over here is one of the sides. I think there should be another side there with the central channel. And if we come in, you can see that we have an area for a vortex to form on this side. And indeed, a little while ago I saw the seeds, a bit like dandelion seeds, or like some sort of fluffy seeds. They were moving around in a vortex on the ground. Okay, and you have the counter vortex on this side, and then you have these offset areas, and this may actually be an original temple and they built this other one on in front, but that's the side entrance here, that's the central entrance, and I think where this big slab is here, and possibly the one adjacent, that has been put in with the reconstruction on the outside. It's very, very poor, or maybe on reconstruction at some point. Come through to the back area, which may have been the original energy structure. Again, you have the vortex area and the anti-vortex, or vice versa, and the accumulation point. So I think these are in fact ether energy vortex temples. Now, which direction is that facing?
Okay, so back to the Hal-Tarkshin temples. These are apparently 200 years later. And here's some photographs I took. This is at the back end. So this is, you could say that this was the Holy of the Holies. This is where the energy is, in my view, amplified from the early parts of the structure, comes up the golden ratio breakout line, and again is the energy is amplified right the way up to here. So I imagine at this part of the temple, when the structure was operational, your connection to source, your ability, if you were sensitive to this, maybe as a remote viewer, someone with those abilities, you would feel your capabilities enhanced, particularly at certain times of years and so on. So the placement of that stone you can see is here, although this is a copy, and you can see how you have this clear channel going through to the Holy of Holies. And here again the vortex structure, but on the entrance to the Tarkshin temples, left and right, or actually this might be another temple, but this is left and right of a temple structure. They had this, which is mind-boggling to me. So this is actually the first megalithic preserved pieces that you see when you walk into the Malta Ancient Archaeological Museum. And you can see the actual cash desk is over here, and these are tourist books of Malta you see on the right-hand side here. And so this is the right-hand side, and this is the left-hand side. And at a cursory glance, these look the same, but they're not. The one on the right obviously has a core. The one on the left obviously has a core. They also have a vortex in this position on the right-hand side. This is a counter vortex in the position on the right-hand side. This is a counter vortex on the position on the left-hand side. This is a vortex on the left-hand side. On the bottom, you've got a vortex and a counter vortex. And then here you have a counter vortex and a vortex. Moreover, the inflow coming in here, because you've got a vortex and an anti-vortex, so you've got inflow here, vortex and an anti-vortex, inflow here. So you have wheel making wheel, wheel and wheel, and then over here it's rotated 90 degrees. Remember that these fractal structures rotate 90 degrees. Yes, Herr Woods, you've got it. Well done. Fantastic. You can see it. You can see it. And we're talking about things that are older than the Great Pyramid, according to, if you believe the age of the Great Pyramid. But this shows a very, very precise understanding of what's going on. And I'm still processing this because I might have to adjust how I think certain things are working in the fractal toroidal moment structure based on the right and left geometry that they are presenting here. I think this is very key. So yeah, they rotated 90 degrees. It's extremely important, I think. Now the other thing is that this is ordering processes. This is ordering processes. But all over the Haltakshin temples, they have representations of chaos, in my view. Chaos. Now this isn't exactly correct, but it's not far off. But it's amazing what you'll see later. Okay, so I'm going to go to the other presentation here. So again, the Haltakshin temples, this one here. When I see this, it's not perfect representation, but what I see in my mind's eye is what is called a Kármán Street vortex. And it's just the poster child for turbulence. So this is from NASA's website. You can go and have a look at it and a description of it here. And essentially this is the Cape Verde Islands, basically a load of volcanoes. And Fogo Santa Anteo, if I say this wrong, I'm sorry. São Nicolau Islands, I think they are these three islands. They're the really tall ones, or maybe this is a really tall one. There's some of them are taller than others. Other ones are quite flat. Like I think this one's quite flat, this one's quite flat. But anyway, whatever's going on here, and with the prevailing winds, is causing this Kármán Street vortex here. Okay? So we have a vortex here, and then it comes a counter vortex, and then a vortex, and then a counter vortex, and then a vortex, and then a counter vortex, and then a vortex, and then a counter vortex, and so on. And I think that that is kind of what is being represented here, although there are many other examples which I will share in time. Okay. Well, this brings me on to a little bit crazy. A little bit of crazy. Do I want to do this right now, or do I want to show you something else? Do I want to show you something else? I'm just going to do one interlude. I never got this out into the original psionics presentation, but we'll show it now. Talking about vortices and how that can cohere energy. I've talked about how the lotus position and going Om and getting those evos coming out of your hands, making a vortex and an anti-vortex, and then the magnetic ring and the toroidal moment going through your body, complete with the sound, build that chi flux going through your body, can allow you to connect and open the portal, but also to levitate. I want to talk about a whirling dervish. And when I had first met Suhas Ralkar, and he was escorting me to the airport before I gave my first video for Red Pill. He said to me, "Do you know what a whirling dervish is?" And I said, "Oh, it's these guys that go round and round, don't they?" I didn't know much about it. That's about all I knew. And we had a conversation about it. I said, "I think they go into some sort of trance." Anyway, I'm going to read you this here, which I put together. And A whirling dervish goes into a trance as part of a spiritual practice rooted in Sufism, a mystical branch of Islam. The whirling dance, known as Sufi whirling or tanura, is performed by members of the dervish order, particularly the Megalithic order, founded by followers of the 13th century poet and mystic Rumi. So, of course, this would be after the sort of end of the golden period of the Knights Templar. The trance-like state is not the goal itself, but a byproduct of their meditative ritual, which aims to achieve a deeper connection to the divine. Sufi dervishes are known to spin for extended periods during their rituals, with dancers whirling for up to 20 to 30 minutes at a time in segments, interspersed with rests. Rumi's poetry has themes like love is the path to the divine, there is unity of all existence, the journey of the soul from and back to God, transcendence through poetry and music, well, he was a poet, and ways to experience the divine, inner transformation over external rules. He encouraged self-awareness, humility, and shedding the ego. So, you are producing a whirlwind. It's literally whirling dervish. So if you were to understand the Sator rotus or rotus Sator square, it wouldn't be a great leap of intellect to think that if you, as a water-bearing, essentially, body were to spin, you could create a torsion field in the ether and through that spin allow for a vortex to channel chi through your body, which I argue will get you closer to connection with source, intensifying. There are people that clearly understood this and were trying to use physical approaches to maximize their connection. Okay. So I'm going to go back to a little bit crazy. So what am I talking about? I've showed you this on Malta at the Haltakshin temples, which I believe is one of the many, many symbols of turbulence. Here's another one. And what I particularly like about this is, if you can imagine these are representations of temples, can you see that each one, it's slightly offset. It's slightly offset. They're not, they're not in a perfect straight line grid. Because it isn't. It isn't. It never is. One side is bigger than the other one slightly, and the other one's up from the other one. Remember, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of years before what I considered, and do still consider, one of the most important scientific documents on Earth, the Coptic Christian stele in the Cairo Coptic Christian Museum. But here you see, and this is from thousands and thousands of years before that. Okay, and this is a model, one might say, for the amplification process of Qi. So, this brings me to the jewel. Can anyone guess what I'm about to talk about? Can you guess what I'm about to talk about? Crenellated spheres, hair waltz? That's not a bad guess. Is it Khafra? No. Pineal? No. Sandwiches? I do like sandwiches. Please tell us. Okay. The 33rd degree jewel. It was formalized with the establishment of the first Supreme Council in Charleston, South Carolina on May the 31st, 1801. The 33rd degree. These are two 33rd degree jewels. And for some reason, my notes are not coming up, so I do need my notes on this one, so give me a second. That's the most useless thing ever. And the notes are not there. Okay, all right, that's fine. There's no notes on that page. That makes sense. All right. So this was the original jewel, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And this is the Scottish Rites version that came later. Now, if you remember, we looked at the Mexican library, the world's largest mural, and on it, very center placed at the top, was the double-headed eagle. And I'm going to read you some of my notes here. In Freemasonry, the double-headed eagle is a significant symbol, particularly associated with the Scottish Rite, one of the appendant bodies of the fraternity. It's not a universal symbol across all Masonic traditions, but where it appears, it carries deep esoteric meaning. The double-headed eagle is typically depicted with two heads facing opposite directions, often grasping a sword or other emblem in its talons. The image is rooted in ancient heraldry and mythology, drawing from cultures like the Hittites, which you have down here. This is a Hittite sculpture, as far as I'm aware, and the Byzantines. Here's the Byzantine sculpture here, and later European traditions. In the context of the Scottish Rite, it is most prominently tied to the 32nd degree, and this is the 32nd degree jewel here, and this is another emblem of the 32nd degree. It's known as the Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret. The Royal Secret? What's the secret? What is the secret? And is a key emblem of the Supreme Council. The two heads are generally interpreted as representing duality or balance, indeed. Duality or balance. Concepts central to Masonic philosophy. This can include the balance between spiritual and material, intellect and emotion, or justice and mercy. It's a reminder of the need for harmony between opposing forces, a theme that resonates with the broader Masonic pursuit of wisdom and self-improvement. Some interpretations also suggest the heads symbolize the ability to see in all directions, signifying vigilance, awareness, and the expansive vision required to comprehend universal truths. Historically, the symbol's adoption in Freemasonry likely borrows from its use in the Holy Roman Empire. Yes, indeed. The Holy Roman Empire used this extensively. And other imperial traditions where it denoted dominion over both East and West. As Freemasonry evolved in the 18th and 19th centuries, it absorbed such symbols to convey authority and enlightenment. I already talked about how it was part of the Habsburg Empire. If you go to Vienna, you'll see it on some of the grand buildings in Vienna. On the top of the buildings. The eagle's upward flight also aligns with the idea of aspiration towards higher knowledge or divine understanding, a core tenet of the craft. That said, Masonic symbolism is intentionally layered and open to interpretation. The exact meaning can vary depending on the context within the lodge or the individual Mason's perspective. It's less about a single rigid definition and more about what the symbol inspires in the pursuit of moral and philosophical growth. Now, Master of the secret. The secret is not a literal password or fact, but a metaphorical representation of the deepest truths about human existence, morality, and the universe revealed through the right's teachings. The balance of opposites, a core lesson of the 32nd degree, is the reconciliation of dualities, good and evil, light and darkness, order and chaos. This mirrors the Order ab Chao motto shared with the 33rd degree, suggesting that true wisdom lies in harmonizing these forces. The lost word. Some connect it to the Masonic quest for the lost word, from the 3rd degree craft of Masonry, symbolizing ultimate truth or divine wisdom that is sought but never fully articulated, preserved instead through symbolic ritual. Some Masonic scholars connect the royal secret to the lost word from the 3rd degree of craft of Masonry, a symbol of the divine truth lost with Hiram Abiff's death. In the Scottish Rite, the secret might represent its rediscovery, not as a literal word, but as an intuitive grasp of existence. Not as a literal word, but as an intuitive grasp of existence's deeper meaning achieved through the degree's lessons. If I told you the royal secret is X, I'd be misrepresenting it, because Freemasonry insists it's not a fact to be handed over. It's a realization earned. A realization earned. When someone asks me what is O Day, it's when you realize how it works. I might be wrong, but I'm lucky. The ritual symbols like the 3 intersecting triangles and titles like Keeper are designed to point towards it, not define it outright. So who was Hiram Abiff? Hiram Abiff is introduced in the ritual of the Master Mason degree as the chief architect of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Hiram Abiff is introduced as the chief architect of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, a project described in the Old Testament. He was a skilled craftsman from Tyre, sent by the King Hiram of Tyre to assist King Solomon. He possessed the Master's word, a secret knowledge or symbol of divine truth, which he guarded diligently. He is a symbol of fidelity, because he refused to betray the Master's word, even at the cost of his life. And this symbolizes loyalty to truth and duty. He's a symbol of morality. His death underscores the impermanence of life, encourages Masons to reflect on their own legacy. And the term resurrection here, his symbolic raising by Solomon. So I don't know the full story. People that know the Bible better than I will probably know that he died to preserve the secret. That's the interpretation here, and that he was resurrected by Solomon. So his symbolic raising by Solomon represents the triumph of virtue and the hope of spiritual renewal, paralleling themes in other mystery traditions. The lost word he guarded, never explicitly revealed in the ritual, becomes a metaphor for ultimate wisdom or divine connection, which Masons seek through their degrees. In the Scottish Rite, this quest ties into the royal secret of the 32nd degree, suggesting a continuity of themes from craft Masonry to the higher degrees. So in the Scottish Rite, which is the second jewel that I showed you, which we're going to come back to after we've looked at the first jewel of the 33rd degree, the quest ties into the royal secret, this royal secret that Hiram Abiff supposedly knew, that is first introduced in the 3rd, but then the 32nd degree, suggesting continuity of themes from craft of Masonry to higher degrees. Hiram Abiff is the legendary master builder of Solomon's Temple. And the speculation is that Solomon's Temple was where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. Killed for refusing to surrender sacred knowledge and revered in Freemasonry as a symbol of integrity and the search for truth. He's not a historical figure in the conventional sense, but a crafted archetype central to the moral and philosophical fabric of the craft. Now, Solomon's Temple is also known as the First Temple, and it's traditionally dated to around 957 BC. So we're talking around about 3,000 years ago, a full 1,000 or 957 years before the birth of Christ. Hiram Abiff, a legendary figure in Freemasonry, is central to the rituals and symbolism. He's portrayed as the master of the Solomon's Temple, and it's a story of skill, integrity, and tragic death, which embodies moral lessons about fidelity and perseverance. In Masonic lore, his murder and resurrection symbolizes initiation and spiritual enlightenment. Hiram Abiff was said to know the Master's Word, a secret symbolizing divine wisdom and the mysteries of creation in Freemasonry. This knowledge, tied to his role as Solomon's Temple architect, represented ultimate craftsmanship and spiritual insight, which he refused to divulge even under threat, emphasizing loyalty and integrity. So, let's look at the first 33 jewel. This is the 33rd degree jewel. Okay, so its foundation is a stylized Teutonic cross, which is in the background. You have a sword going one way and a sword with the finger with the symbol on the top right. You get to see these symbols. And it has 3 sets of words on there. Not on this one, it has it on the other one. So this jewel only has the first and third, and the next jewel that we'll look at has the central one. So order ab chaos, which we've talked about before, order from chaos. And I argue that turbulence allows for you to create through the vortex. And chaos is generally considered to be created by the male, the yang, and order from the yin force. Okay? From the dragon and from the phoenix. The dragon, if you go to Eastern traditions, the dragon and the phoenix, and we're going to look at that in a lot more detail when I take you to Asia. Now, the words around here, so there's 9 holes in here. So you have 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. Okay? So you have 3 equilateral triangles, and they're rotated such that they create 9 zones in here. So 3, 6, 9. And in there, there's sapienta, which means wisdom. Oh, it does have. It does have, sorry, I missed it there. Deus memque jus. Deus memque jus means order from chaos is God's and my right. To create order from chaos is God and my right. This is the wisdom. Okay? Where and when was the 33rd degree jewel first described? So from them, themastercraft.net product/33rd degree jewel. I'll have all the references in the blog. The Grand Constitution of 1786. So this is 20 years after the founding of New Jerusalem, America. Supposedly authorized and signed by Frederick the Great, described the 33rd degree jewel. The grand decorations of the order rest upon a Teutonic cross. That's the symbol of God-controlled power, the Teutonic cross, stylized in this case. They are a 9-pointed star, namely one formed by 3 triangles of gold, one upon the other and interlaced. From the lower part of the left side of the upper part of the right, a sword extends, and in the opposite direction is a hand of as it is called, justice, the hand of justice. So this is meant to be the hand of justice. In the center of the shield of the order, azure, charged with an eagle like that on the banner, having on the dexter side a balance, and on the sinister side a compass of the second, united with a square of the second. Okay, so they are the things that they have here. Now, to just go back to the double-headed eagle, the first time that the double-headed eagle is mentioned, and I've talked about this before, was Zeus sent out an eagle east and west to find out where the center of the earth was, and they settled in Delphi. Delphi that has the Chi-Rho symbol. I believe that if the people that landed 7,000 years ago, if the legends are to be believed, were looking for a place in which to set up shop, I would argue that southern Greece was the main Greece peninsula was a very good place to set up shop. And so I would suggest that the eagles that were sent out by Zeus, the bearer of the ball lightning, the bearer of the thunderbolt, were in fact spacecraft, and that they looked around the earth to find the most important place and best place to set up shop. Okay, so back to the jewel. Around the whole shield runs a band of the first, with a Latin inscription of the second, order ab chaos, so order from chaos, which band is enclosed by two circles formed by two serpents of the second, each biting its own tail. So there's meant to be two serpents, but you'll notice it's like Uberos, but it's not on this particular version of the jewel. Of the smaller triangles that are formed by the intersection of the greater ones, those 9 that are nearest the band are of crimson colour, and each of them has one of the letters that compose the word sapienta. So this is not exactly to the description from 1786 or thereabouts. They think that the first jewel was created in 1801, when the Supreme Council began conferring the 33 degree in principle. Whilst the 33rd degree jewel was designed and described in 1786, its first physical creation most likely occurred in the 19th century, following the Scottish Rite's formal organisation in 1801. Essentially, the wisdom part here complements the ideals of the Masonic order, signifying the attainment of profound understanding and insight. Profound understanding and insight. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. Remember, the first temple, King Solomon's temple. The Teutonic cross, I think, is chosen because it is actually a version that is same as the Jerusalem cross. The Jerusalem cross. And in fact, the Grand Council of the Scottish Rites actually has a Jerusalem cross in the centre. Therefore, I think we can safely conclude that they chose this version of the cross to align with the Jerusalem cross. The Jerusalem cross often is depicted with Christ's head in the centre. And Christ's centre is exactly where that head is. Exactly where that head is. Over here is the second jewel. This is the Scottish Rites jewel. And this is really rather special, because what does the Latin mean on this jewel? Laus Deo Custos Arcani. Praise be to God, Laus Deo, guardian of the secret. Laus Deo Praise be to God. Custos Arcani, guardian of the secret. Spes mea in Deo est. Spes mea in Deo est. My hope is in God. My hope is in God. So, praise be to God, guardian of the secret. My hope is in God. Can anyone see it? Can anyone see it? Can you see it? So, both hands point inwards. No. The edge, no. Are you ready? Are you ready? Not the 33, no. Are you ready? Three, two, one, boom! Can you see it now? Chaos. Chaos. Vortex, anti-vortex, exactly the same shape as you get in a magnetohydrodynamic structure. Exactly the same as you get in a magnetohydrodynamic structure. 3, 2, 1, boom! We're back here again. What do we have? Vortex, chaos coming into a vortex and an anti-vortex, exactly the cloverleaf shape. And this is pointing in this direction. And over here we have chaos, vortex, anti-vortex, cloverleaf shape, magnetohydrodynamic structure pointing in this direction. Chaos, vortex, anti-vortex, cloverleaf structure, vector pointing in this direction. Chaos, anti-chaos, vortex, anti-vortex, cloverleaf structure pointing in this direction. We have a wheel making this wheel, and that is producing this wheel, which is producing the fractal toroidal moment. And this here is giving you wings. It's the Christ center. This symbol to me exactly and precisely shows the secret. It shows the secret. It's right there for anyone to see. This is kind of what I mean by I get lucky. Of course, the symbol of God control power, the minimum is 4. It is the Christian cross, it's the Teutonic cross, it's all of the above. It's the cross of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem cross, with Christ in the center, Christ. There's Chi-Rho. Christ meaning Chi-Rho. The Greeks gave him Christ. It's the center of the ball, lightning, thunderbolt coins. Okay? They knew this stuff. It's the symbol of Delphi, the secret of alien technology, extraterrestrial technology. And it is right there. It is right there on the 33rd degree. Praise be to God, guardian of the secret. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that for a second, and I'm going to go to the little boy's room. So if you give me a second, I'm going to leave you to mull that over. I'm actually going to go back to the previous slide. Here. I'll leave it here. Yeah, I'm going to leave it here so you can see. Just to show you very specifically. The interesting thing is that whilst Takshin is very, very close to Valletta, it was only uncovered, these stones, from 1916 to 18. So I wonder if the knights that were on Malta had uncovered it before and buried it again to keep the secret, or they adjusted the 33rd jewel to incorporate this understanding. But from my perspective, there's almost no way that you can have in the temples on Malta, this place where they spent so long, and they actually spent longer on Rhodes, and I've already showed you on Rhodes, being close to Greece, there was incredible knowledge in the artifacts, and just you have to go to the British Museum. I don't know how many times I have to say, you have to go to the British Museum to really get where all this is. But the temple that I believe, and it's the classic basic prototype for a Maltese temple, is at the oldest temple complex's age here. If you go to Gozo, there's some older temples there, but most of them are so destroyed you can't see any form. But this is the basic cloverleaf shape. This is the structure of the magneto-hydrodynamic vortex, as you can see here. It's not guesswork, this is exactly it. And as you can see, it makes the cross. This is a plasma version, and as you see, the vortex goes up into that corner and comes down to that corner. It goes up to that corner, it comes down to that corner. It's slightly offset. This is exactly encoded in their understanding. Exactly encoded in their understanding. It cannot be by accident. It cannot be by accident. They have to have known this. These other than Göbekli Tepe, this is the oldest structures, megalithic structures on Earth. And they knew. They knew. They knew. They knew, absolutely. The information encoded in the entranceway to the temple, where you would want the key points to be laid out for people to see, is here, right? You literally have to step across this threshold, right? It's like you cannot go into the Holy of Holies without understanding how it's working, right? And they're not trying to hide it. It's in plain sight. It's in plain sight. And all through the temple, in the areas that aren't the focusing of the energy, right? So the energy flux is focused through here, through the vortex and the anti-vortex. It's the vector, okay? It couldn't make it more obvious. And the fractal toroidal structure is either side of the entrance, which is the bit that focuses the channel through. Okay, that's the channel through. These are on the side of the channel through. Do you get it? Do you get it? But in other places, they have turbulence. Lots of different varieties of turbulence, like this. Okay? They've left it for us to learn from. Maybe the order on Malta decided to bury these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, having dug them up and seen it. And then it was rediscovered at the turn of 1900s. Maybe that was the case, because they weren't that very far underground, but they were buried. Makes you think. Makes you think. So I'm going to leave you with this so you can see that it's not a guesswork. It is precisely showing the turbulence, and it is precisely showing the vortex anti-vortex. That is the prototype of their temples. See you in a little while. We're going to talk about an application. Okay guys, before we go on to the application, I'm going to give you another couple of booms. Because it's a little bit of crazy day today. Two. Crazy day two. Oh, don't quote me on that symbol. Right, so crazy day two. So we're going to show you some other things just in a second before we move on to an application. Now, in the Grand Master's house in Valletta, there is an armory. And I've already showed you the absolute last item in the armory. So you walk into the armory when you're on the tour route, and on the very far opposite side, at the back side, is a shield. And that was the cover slide to my presentation at Strasbourg last year. Why did I choose that? Because it has a torus made of 47 tori substructures orthogonally arranged. And I asked what that was, and they said it was the Grand Master's personal battle shield. He was showing the most powerful thing you could represent on a piece of metal. Yeah, 47. If you go to 48, you risk instability. So 47 is the best way, the most powerful. It's right on the edge. Okay? 47. Now, in the neighbouring room to that, so if you come out of the armory and you go down some steps, you turn right, there is the ceremonial room. And I've got pictures of all these things, and like I say, when I really talk about Malta, I'll go into it. But in that ceremonial room, the big throne has two immense vortexes and anti-vortex either side of it, going either side of the throne chair. But this very large room, which was where they signed the end of the Cold War, on the ceiling does not have the Maltese cross. It has the Teutonic cross. It has exactly the symbol of God-controlled power all over the ceiling. All over the ceiling. It's totally ridiculously obvious when you know what you're looking at. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, when you walk in to the armory, almost the first cabinet you see, also has something which I couldn't believe. I just couldn't believe it. So ridiculous. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom! What are you looking at? What are you showing me, Bob? I'm showing you two armoured shoes. And do you know what? What you're seeing on the armoured shoes? You're seeing a cone. But more importantly, you've got a vortex and an anti-vortex and a spiral going one way. But, and this is how absurd this is, on the other shoe, it's got the anti-vortex and the counter anti-vortex. And the spiral going the other way. So the left has one vortex. One is a yin and one is a yang. One is a yin and one is a yang. This is some of the earliest armour showing precise understanding of how the universe works. Precise understanding of how the universe works. Now, on other armour, you have some understanding that the body itself shows these patterns And of course, you sometimes have to only have 2D because you're working with metal. Here, a vortex coming down to an anti-vortex on the golden ratio line. A vortex and an anti-vortex on the golden ratio line. And then through the center of the body, you will have the vector. And guess what? You have a male on one side and a female on the other. Do you understand the pride that went into the craftsmanship here? And you've got the vortex and the anti-vortex. You've got the same kind of instability around the outside here. The instability and then the vortex. This is the chaos around the outside. The chaos around the outside. And the vortex producing order. Unbelievable. But of course, Malta was basically controlling a large proportion of the central part of the Mediterranean. Seafaring. And in the Maritime Museum in Malta, they have something again which shows you how incredibly they knew the technology, in my view. This is a jackstaff pattern. 3, 2, 1, boom! The fleur-de-lis with the disruption zone. The Teutonic cross with the ball lightning core. And a ball lightning core and a ball lightning core and this is a swastik made of swastik feeding into the main ball lightning core. This is breathtaking levels of understanding. If you go to one of the main churches or cathedrals in Valletta and all across Malta, you'll see these kind of things, which are actually so important to the Maltese. They are considered part of their national heritage. And of course, it's the more stylized Maltese cross, which I have identified is also in the old Dongolia, Sudanese, south of modern-day Egypt, columns from a long time before the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitalier. So this is an adopted symbol, but look, it's a vortex-anti-vortex making a ring, and a vortex and anti-vortex making the other part of the ring, and that makes a ring, and that makes a ring, and that makes a ring. This is a swastika made of at least 2 on each subtor, making the overall vortex. So why so secret? Why do you think? Unlimited energy at any point. Connection to source. Connection to see across time and into past time. Understand to project your intention into others. Energy at any point in the universe and propulsion. Energy at any point in the universe and propulsion. Teleportation. But we're going to come back from the little bit crazy right now, and we're going to go to a practical application. Thank you, Scoggy Hoggins. That's very generous, the 12 euros. Bob, you think they actually knew or just channeled this without knowing the physics applications? Really, it doesn't matter. It's more of a sense of humor, perhaps of spirit. For anyone that cares to look, this is inside of us. You can find it. Many people have. In the Buddhist faith, it's like enlightenment. It's what you become, you know. A Swami that becomes so in touch with how the universe works. They can't interact with normal humans, and they go and the yogi goes into the forest and basically can't interact with humans after they get so connected to source. It's raising up your spirit. It's all of the above. And across cultures, it was known. It's across cultures. It's going to absolutely blow your mind completely when you see what's happened in Asia over thousands of years. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And it's been there in front of our faces all of our lives. All of our lives. And it's like, it's got to be a big joke to a lot of people who really understand it. Now, did they really understand it? Whoa, I really think those people that built those temples in Malta really, really, really understood it. I really think they did. And I think, and that's where we're going next, the people that built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, they really, really, really understood it. Really understood it. Okay. So, when you know that this is how it works, regardless of the fact that I came at this from looking at things under a microscope and doing experiments, that the point of focus here, which is exactly and precisely the top of the cross, when you look at it on the plasma interaction in the Henk-Urim reactor, where the energy is channeled in, okay? And this is described as the trefoil. And it's actually kind of like an infinity symbol that works in 3. And we've actually seen these structures on Hutchison samples. Okay? So, when you know that this process is at each of the fractal levels, and of course, it doesn't need to be only 4, it can be more. And in the work of Griffin Brock, we observed, I think it was 24 potential subsections. Thank you very much, Matthew Reynolds. We're going to talk about an application. And to talk about that application, I want to just talk a few things about what a potential tool that is available that emerges out of this technology that has good data and a history. And I want to refer to Eugene Podkletnov's work. Now, why am I referring to his work? Well, because he used a superconductor, a YBCO, yttrium, barium, copper oxide. And he spanned this very, very fast. Okay? He described that there was a danger zone below this where dissimilar materials would start merging into each other. This is the Hutchison effect. Okay, going on in the danger zones. You don't want to be in this danger zone. This is also the area in which chi will be ripped from your body, which is what I was showing was being shown by Dubovik. So you don't want to be in the danger zone because this is where there is a depressurization in the ether. Why? Because it's being pulled in here. Now, they have an outer coil around here to align the magnetic fields in the same way, and essentially this works the same way as the PAP device to a degree, although it's more pulsed system. This is to align the magnetic fields of the clusters. Okay? And this is a superconductor. So what you're going to get is you're going to get superconductivity on here, and eventually it's going to get to on the surface plasmons, the surface electrons on the superconductor, they're going to become superfluid. And we know from Piotr Kapitsa, from his 1930s work, that if you have a superfluid and you spin it, it produces loads of little mini vortices. This is what we've seen in Hutchison effect samples under the microscope. I believe that's what's going on in the Clean Planet low-energy nuclear reactor, which is resulting in islands of oxygen where material is also removed, and that is producing the most excess heat. They're seeing the same regular array that I've observed and shared on Hutchison effect samples. And also, we saw this in the disruption area in the, what I call the cardioid infarction sample of Henk urine. That's the brass plate on top of a iron plate that on the backside shows the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. When you spin this structure here, you're going to get these little vortices of coherent electrons. And then what happens, and the reason is because the angular momentum of the overall spin is divided in the superfluid. And then he uses a high voltage, high DIDT pulse from a Marx generator. So a really high voltage pulse. And when you get that whole high voltage pulse, that will produce a Taylor cone of these fluidized electrons moving from the negative to the positive target. And what you then end up with is the rotational hydrodynamic shear, which is as maxed out as it possibly can be. And then this, as maxed out as it possibly can be, second axis hydrodynamic shear in the fluidized electrons. And what does that produce? It produces a massive, instantaneously cluster of coherent electrons, which will lead to a large ball lightning EVO type structure that will then go and hit this target. Because of the intense voltage here, we already know that when you go with 240 volts, according to Ken Shoulders, you can easily achieve 1/10 of C. I believe that you will achieve far higher than 1/10 of C in this setup, and it will hit here. It may even accelerate. Again, the magnetic coil here is to align the field in the same way that it is meant to align the field in the PAP generator. And in fact, largely it's the same thing, except you're producing the clusters in a different way. They're becoming static electricity rather than fluid superconducting electrons. Okay, and so that then hits here, and then you get a gravity impulse that comes out of here. A gravity impulse. Why? Because that huge fractal torus will be pulling vast amounts of chi through, and when it does that, you create the danger zone. You create the danger zone where dissimilar materials will be interacting with each other, same as the Hutchison effect. This effectively is one aspect of the Hutchison effect going on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that he claimed, and I'm going to put it in context with two other claims that we have, and here it is. The penetration through other material, according to Podkletnov, gravity impulse beam, was 5,000 meters, 5 kilometers he measured it to. There was only a restriction in that he couldn't measure it further than that because, you know, they couldn't get a site that was far enough away. He also said that the time it takes is far less than speed of light would take, and he measured the speed of 64 times c for the gravity impulse beam. Now, Alexander Shishkin, who I consider a friend now, who worked with Dubovik until he died last year for the last 11 years of his life, stated that broken up exotic vacuum objects, which he calls low, mid, and high energy solitons now, which are these structures, they can unwind to a degree in mid-air and become what he calls string vortex solitons. And he claims that they have observed them traveling up to 700 meters. 700 meters. Griffin Brock, according to the understanding of David Boutlier, has claimed that he is witnessed his beams traveling around about 1,000 foot. Now, Griffin Brock has taken absolute crystal clear shadowgraphs using his desmatron tube. The desmatron tube, we have proven, based on a hunch, but proven, it produces the magnetohydrodynamic structure. And it is producing exactly that. And this is a kind of resonant, not too intense structure. Okay? So we're not looking for something that goes 5 kilometers. We don't want that. String vortex soliton, 700 meters. Well, because of the way that he was doing these discharges, not sure you want that. But I like the 1,000-foot thing. And right now, David Boutlier is working to see how far his particular device can travel. And if you just bear with me, I'll show you his beautiful desmatron apparatus, which I think is just totally awesomely cool. So it's well worth the wait. So give me a check here, and thank you to David for sharing this. I've got to download it first. Okay, here we go. Give me a second. Oh dear. Sorry about this. I have it launching into Windows on emulation, so you just have to bear with me for a minute. This confuses my system. Give me a second. Sorry for the delay. I would have got this ready for you earlier, but unfortunately we lost an hour last night, didn't we? Okay. Right. This is going to be pretty special. So, first time public airing. We also have some people with desmatron tubes coming to Switzerland, and hopefully they're going to try my hypothesis on instantaneous radioactive remediation, and also to the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, Griffin Brock cannot travel with me to ICCF 26 in Japan, but I'm hoping that we can have someone else come and one of the other people that have it, and maybe we can do the experiments that I want to do. If not, in the Alchemy of Prague /Brno, we will try and run some of these experiments, and those people that attend may be able to see that for the first time live in public. Okay, so let me just get this, and we are going to go here. I'm going to drop it into the presentation, why not? Blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is really rather special. Okay, all right, let me change it here. Okay, you ready? Oh, thank you very much, Mark Baum, for that $49. That's just awesome. Thank you to all the contributors tonight. Okay, I'm gonna zoom into that a little bit more. I'm gonna take that to another slide, and we're gonna go right up to the action. Honestly, it's a real pleasure to be able to have the honor to do this work, and its contributions like yours over and all the others over many years that have made sharing this thing with you possible. You ready? Sorry, but if that doesn't look like something out of a sci-fi movie, I don't know what does. It's unbelievably awesome. Now, I've asked him to take multiple points 10 feet apart. And this is the funny thing about Dave. He takes it to definitely to a volume 12. Well beyond volume 11. We're up into volume 12 now. So yeah, and you can see coming from the end of the tube, there is a halo. Right, there's a halo coming right out the end of the tube. So I believe that the beam of black light, the dark solitons, the radiant energy, the neutral exotic vacuum objects is so intense coming out of here. Now, I've asked him to do an energy on the spectrometer using one of these. And this obviously produces a very intense signal. He says even, I think, 20 or 30 feet away, it's incredibly intense. So the idea is to go out as far as he can possibly do, and ideally have it in such a situation so he can measure the change in counts up to, say, 500, 600, 700 feet. And I think that's what we would be okay to do. And can anyone guess why I want this to do this? Why would I want to do this? Now, obviously, this isn't something that you could easily present at a conference, because it would just frighten the hell out of people. Or they get super excited. But I think we only need to go as far as Griffin Brock has done. Griffin Brock says 1,000 feet, that's more than enough. And we don't want to have these things too energetic. Definitely don't stand behind here. That's what I would suggest. Right? Very good, Ken Pratt. Scan the pyramid. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Well done. I don't know if... Did someone else say that first? Did someone else say that first? Anyway, thank you, Ken. Yes. Right. Right. You can see where I'm going here. Very good. I like it. I like it a lot. Right. So in that case, I will talk about this. This is a method that we know works. It's using cosmic ray muons. And essentially, a cosmic ray is like we showed in the work of Dmitry Baranov, in that I translated, AI-assisted translated his words from the celebration of Alexander Parkhomov's 80th birthday. They had the fastest, the largest proton accelerator, 70 gigaelectron volts for many years in this part of Russia. They accelerated them into 60 centimeters of aluminium, and then they went through 150 meters or something of vacuum chamber to decay, then through 49 meters of solid iron, then through a spark chamber, and then into the world's largest ever, and probably will ever be, bubble chamber, which was 7 cubic meters of freon at up to 20 atmospheres of pressure with a 14 centimeters of glass. And what you saw in there was a neutrino interacting with some of the freon nuclei, causing a nuclear event. And at one point there is a muon that's produced, and the muon travels a distance and then it interacts with another nuclei, producing a fusion star exactly like was observed by Takaaki Matsumoto. And so you have the fusion star, exactly like we observed coming out of cold cavitation fuel by Suhas Raukar. So it's the muons that are generated when these cosmic rays, these high energy protons, hit the upper atmosphere and they rain down. And this allows a known method to observe inside the building. And that's how we've got some verifications of what's already in there. And they saw this chamber above the support beams, support stone, and it was verified after they had found it. So that's their looking point, and they saw this chamber, and in fact the chamber turns out to be there. Okay, so they'd seen it from various aspects. They'd found the void, and it turns out to be a real thing. Okay, now there's been a lot of things about this speculation of a city. Now this to me is Gaussian splatted, very, very low resolution fidelity data. And how on earth you get to this, and having done 3D for almost all of my working life, how do you get to that from that? I don't know. If I had all the data, maybe, but I just don't see it. Maybe I could be wrong, and I've been wrong before, but perhaps there is a way that we can verify some of what they claim about this and other pyramids. I mean, they make these extraordinary claims here about the internal structures. And here's the thing. How big is the base of the Great Pyramid? How big is the base of the Great Pyramid? Anyone? Oh, goodbye, John. Take care. Look after yourself. Each side of the Great Pyramid is 230.4 meters or 755.9 feet. 755.9 feet. Yeah, 230.4 meters. Okay. So what I am proposing to do is essentially this. And I'm gonna draw this real time, and I was going to prepare a 3D model, but I'm going to see if I can actually draw something, and it's probably not going to work, but I think you know where I'm going. So let me just do this, and we'll go like that. Right, where's that going? Why can I not get control of this screen? Okay. Right. Okay. Essentially, what I propose is, and all we need to do is to verify that we can look through a building, and I think we can do that. It only needs to be a limestone building, and we have a method that is possibly far superior than cosmic muons. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I don't know whether I can do it. Let's see if I can do it. Right, my best pyramid. No, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here. Why can't I do that? Go there. Okay, let's try this. Right. A pyramid. Right, that's our pyramid. Ta-da, one pyramid. And what we're going to do is I have already identified a 75 kilogram carrying drone that runs for 20 minutes. It's about something like 70,000 pounds. 70,000 pounds. And you need at least 2 of them. You need a power source. You can see how bad my writing is on the screen here. A power source. And we need some desmatron tubes. And we need a photo screen. And we need camera arrangement. Okay? And then what we do is we have our drones with our apparatus here, and we have another one over here on the other side of the pyramid, and they scan like this. Okay? And then they go back and scan and scan and scan, 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 scan. Okay? Let's say they work from the top down. Okay? And what you'll get is a whole series of images with whatever's going on in the pyramid. And then you stitch them together horizontally and vertically, and you get a full map of the inside of the pyramid. I mean, you could do it with existing helicopters. You could do it with... The thing is about drones is you can specify their location. And even with the claims of Griffin himself, if they are to be confirmed, which we may be able to do soon, we will be able to look through the pyramid. And we already know, the great thing is, in theory, we already know the pyramid is fairly transparent, at least the normal parts of the pyramid, to the normal limestone is normally transparent to etheric matter rays. That's the whole point. That's the whole point, right? So when it hits granite, which are going to be less transparent to etheric matter rays, then not that it is, you know, but anyway, less transparent, you're going to be able to see that. There's going to be a difference in transparency. And then it's just a case of doing the contrast ratio. So what Griffin does, he uses these X-ray photomultiplier screens, which has, essentially it has the modern equivalent of what Tesla was using in the Crookes tube, which he used silver activated zinc sulfide, which is a phosphor, like you have on an old cathode ray tube. In fact, honestly, you could probably take an old cathode ray tube and put a camera at the back end of it, right? Just move it like that. But anyway, and that would be the garage way of doing it. It might even be the best way of doing it. What these modern screens do is they use a rare earth element, which are better, and they can produce different colors other than green. So that's where you get your RGB in a normal trinitron tube, a cathode ray tube. You have different phosphors in your screen, and then what you do, these photomultiplier screens, or these screens that amplify the images, they trap the charge clusters, they break up, their electrons excite the matter, and then it produces an image. And so you then have the camera looking at that screen in a dark box, and that whole thing is strapped to the drone. And so you just track the drones, and the drones do that, and that's it. And if it works, we would be able to get spectacular internal imagery of the pyramids, okay, by firing a beam all the way through them, And let's give it this nice blue color, because that's what sort of the beam looked like, didn't it? Can we do that? We'll make a nice beam, blue beam. So we go. Oh, is it going to do it? And I don't know why I drove that wiggly, because we know they're co-limited or collimated, which means they are parallel beams, and that means you don't get any dispersion. They're like a laser, so they're like a really collimated beam up to the screen, and we get a very nice image appearing on our screen. Okay, so I'm predicting that we could probably, the hardware to do this would be, with the 2 drones and so on, would be about 140,000 plus the desmatron, the power packs and stuff. We're probably talking about $250,000 for the equipment and for a team and some development time. I probably reckon it could be done for $750,000, round it up to $1 million. I think it would get something of a global significance. Of course, there's other things you could use it for. Just saying, but I really want to get the pyramid working, and if these guys have got some idea of what might be in the other pyramids, let's see if there's any truth, right? And of course, if this technology works, you'll see exactly all the structures we know and love in the pyramid. Yes, we could test it. That's my intention, to test it without going to Egypt. Yes, Scoggy Hoggins, yes. We would erect a bunch of limestone, and we would see if we can see through it. So you would go to a particular limestone, pure limestone outcrop that is a pillar. There's a lot of those in Vietnam. And this actually might be a great way of looking at cave systems, actually mapping inside of cave systems, going where you can go. And of course, you can actually put the generator, if I go back to black here, you can actually put the generator, so we got a thing here, and we got our, entrance up here, and we got our ascending passageway and stuff. You can actually put a generator in here and beam it upwards. Yeah, I'm going to make a blue beam there. We like blue beams. A blue beam. Thank you very much, Contraption, for that £30. And thank you again, Scoggy Hoggins. So we're going to have our blue beam up here to our drone. That's now above, and so we can see exactly where things are by triangulating. So this is my proposal, friends and colleagues here. And if this works, we can look through all kinds of different structures. A totally new method. Just saying, if the MIC were to use this would be priced at billions of dollars. If the MIC were to use this, it would be priced at billions of dollars. So I think proving it and then getting access to really properly map and understand where those chambers are in the Great Pyramid, for me, would be the stuff of absolute joy. Because then we would have a better understanding of what is true and what is not true with some of these other more speculative methods. Okay, so with that said, that is my last topic. I think I've did everything I wanted to do today. Not necessarily in the detail, but I think we said we were going to do a little bit of crazy. 2. That is 2. And we went and did a bit of a review of Crazy One. Yep, it's a crazy one. We looked into chaos. Thank you, Beninator. We looked at a bit of chaos. We looked at order out of that chaos. And then we looked at a specific application for the God's toolbox. God with a little g. We went back to nearly a year ago, just before, literally 6 days before the passing of Vladimirovich Dubovik, to look at a little bit of crazy one with the Teutonic Cross and its relationship to the Order of Electrical Engineers and to the symbol of God-controlled power, and how that came about to be shown via experiment, why the swastik is the first symbol that works. The representation here is correct of how probably the sun actually works, and that it is exactly and precisely encoded in this thing on the Sumerian stele. And that in the first one we showed that the Rotas Sator square is exactly and precisely telling you how the universe works, and that thousands and thousands of years before the Sator Rotas square was ever first carved into stone, the knowledge was clearly and very precisely on the oldest structures before Göbekli Tepe were found on the island of Malta, which are the Maltese temples. And we looked at Haltakshin and the sort of turbulence here, and I correlated that to a degree, although it's not perfect, with the turbulence you get in Kármán Street vortices. And of course, here we go. This is both turbulence and channeling of turbulence. Okay, they're a seafaring nation. You can imagine them seeing something like this as a boat was going through the water. Okay, so this is boat going through the water, let's say, and this is the Kármán Street vortex in the sky. Now, you might be able to see something like this if you're in the right place on the right day, if you have a pointy mountain around. And so I then went on to talk about the jewel and the nature and origin of the 33rd jewel and its original order out of chaos, God and my right, and wisdom. And then we talked about the 32nd jewel and how this was really talking about the secret that was the master who had the secret, the lost word. And it was from this guy, Hiram Abiff, who the story goes was there to assist the construction of the first temple, King Solomon's temple, nearly 1,000 years before Christ, 957 years before Christ. And so this is another symbol, and it draws upon this ancient Hittite and Byzantine symbol, which all went through to the Austrian Empire and was part of the Holy Roman Empire symbology. It was on the mural, the world's largest mural, right at the top as a centerpiece of the world's largest mural. And I believe that it originates from the work, Zeus, who may have just been a leader with a couple of spaceships, and he wanted to find a nice place to sit down in the lower part of the Greek peninsula, and it became Delphi, the center of the ancient world. And so analyzing this, we have 3, 6, 9 points from 3 equilateral triangles rotated equidistantly, and this gives you order from chaos, which is God and my right. So it's both God's right and my right to create order from chaos, which is the yin-yang and the balancing of the world. And the wisdom is to know, how much of what needs to be done. And this jewel originated just after the formation of the New Jerusalem, that is America. And the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rites clearly are indicating that it is the Jerusalem cross, which typically has the Chi-Rho or the Christ head in the center, which is the correct place to put it. And this is a 4-4 fractal toroidal geometry. As far as I'm concerned, you've also got the orthogonal flow represented here. So it's wonderfully represented. And the money shot really comes from what I believe is a later modification to the 33rd jewel, which has praise be to God, guardian of the secret, Laus Deo, Costus Arcane, and Spes mea in Deo est, which means my hope is in God. And the beauty of this is that exactly and precisely they have the turbulence pattern here in the chaos part, and the chaos has been pulled into a vortex, which is the triple. Very specifically, this is the yin-yang, but it's actually this clover shape and so forth. And this is essentially how it works. And so this is what we see exactly and precisely in a hydrodynamic vortex, on which this is all based, and it points the vector in this direction. This one points it in this direction. This one points it in this direction. This one points it in this direction. And this is producing the gravitational beam, the flux of relic neutrinos through the core condensed. And we will have an application. This is an application of this technology. So is the Griffin-Brock desmatron, and we can use the Griffin-Brock desmatron which you see here. Thank you very much, Vinanasis, for that $10. It's really kind of you. And thank you again for your €10. Bob, what are you making of the new subterranean scans of Giza? Yes, I talked about that. I don't think they're that relevant, but that was where I was going with that. Okay, so here is a close-up of this wonderful thing that David Boutelier is working on to help us produce a good understanding of the fall-off of this energy. Where are we? I missed it. I want to play that. I literally feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie when I'm watching this. It's just the coolest thing ever. I'm going to play it a few more times just because I enjoy it. Okay, just soak in some of these frames. This is just totally epic. It's totally epic. You gotta laugh! It's a little bit crazy. Okay, and based on the principles that I have shared with you today, using a 75 kilogram drone times 2, which can fly for 20 minutes, but because it can take 75 kilograms, I think we can chuck a generator on there of some type and fly it for longer, but 20 minutes would be enough to do a bit of scanning. We have 70 kilos here, sorry, 70,000 pounds a unit. Power source, desmatron, at least one desmatron, might have more desmatrons, but you might only need one desmatron. Photo screen and the camera, and we set whole set of images, and we do a horizontal and a vertical stitching together, and we should end up with, if the claims are correct, that it can do 1,000 feet. That is more than is necessary to do the scan of the Great Pyramid. And so there we go. Have you got any questions? Yeah, Rick Benson says it's beautiful, but the sound isn't so beautiful. Yeah. So I will go back to the jewel because it tells you what you need to know. I'll actually copy this. I'm going to copy that one. Copy that one into there. Put it over here. There we go. Lovely. And I think I'm going to go into this one, and I'm going to copy my. Just do a little closeout slide to look at your questions. Thank you, Claire Westwood, for that New Zealand $20. Really appreciated. Yeah, I would like to see Griffin earn some serious money for his invention there. I think it's going. I don't want it to be a part of a military technology. I want it to be used to understand things like the Great Pyramid in incredible internal detail, and I think it has a potential to do that. Certain people aren't going to live forever. In fact, whilst you mention Hawass, let me just show you what his opinion of, and I actually agree with him. Hawass said this. A statement by Zahi Hawass on the fake news on Khafre Pyramid. I would like to make a statement regarding the news that was published all over the world by a group of amateurs. This news was under the pyramid of Khafre at Giza. They found a platform topped with pillars. All this information is completely wrong and has absolutely no scientific basis. In addition, the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquity did not give permission to any individuals or institutions to work inside or outside the second pyramid. In addition, the claim that a radar was used inside the pyramid is false. These people who announced this are wrong. This wrong information. They use techniques that are not approved or nor validated. The details announced would never have been seen by using this technique. Zahi Hawass. I kind of agree with him. And here's our friend, and I think this was taken at 50 feet or something. I don't know, at least 22 feet. This beautiful X-ray showing even the crenellations, or rather the corrugations rather, in the corrugated cardboard. This is not the best image of it, but he's got beautiful images of it taken at quite some distance. And remember, we're only looking for something that's quite a bit better than the nonsense, really, that went all over the world. Really, I can't make it's just a Gaussian splat of a very low quality data, and I don't know how they arrived at it. And maybe it does say what they say, but yeah, I'm not seeing it. But if we use this technique and we see reasonably clearly, and possibly even much clearer than the muon-based technique, the structures in the existing pyramid, then we could move forward with a proven technique. And like I say, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that necessarily at the pyramid to prove the technique. Okay. So, yeah, what was I going to do? That was what I was doing. I was finishing a slide for you. Closed slide, so I can take some questions and then go to bed. So, the one I like is... where are we? Somewhere here, there we go. And we'll do a bit of rotation on that. And we'll chuck it up there, make it bigger. Okay, nearly there. Yeah, that's what I'm going for, something like that. Okay, this is going to be my Q&A slide. Not that one. I did it wrong. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, here we go. There we go. So, my point is, this is turbulence. That's Carmen Street Vortex type turbulence. Well, more like this type turbulence. And it's coming into the classic hydrodynamic vortex structure. So, if you have any questions, I will take them now. I'm going to look through, see if you've got any there. Yeah, one deep well shaft might work, yes. We just need to rotate the beam. The well shaft doesn't even need to be under the pyramid. Ken Pratt, you need to go and look at a previous presentation I've done, but essentially the desmatron tube is high voltage, high frequency, and it produces the structure internally. which produces a beam. And I believe it's smashing up the aluminium and releasing the energy, the solitons within it. Hi Laszlo Pap, thank you for the €5. Great insights, Bob. Can this technique scan the underground structures too? Probably not, because we cannot put a photo films down there, right? No, well, certainly, as someone has suggested, you could drill a borehole somewhere that's not under the pyramids, in adjacent area, and put a desmatron tube down there, and orient that, and then have a look. Do that just by pointing it up into the sky at various angles. Anyway, we're pretty much done, John Coombs. Go to bed. Sleep well. So John Combs said, so you think it was aliens instead of ancient advanced civilization? Well, it's both. We might be the aliens. But anyway, I actually directly asked Zahi Hawass what he thought when he was standing in front of me, or very near, just a few tens of feet away, whether he believed aliens, and he is very dismissive, of course. I think it's very possible humans could have done it. I think it's very possible. Both the pyramid or whatever. But the technology is universal, so the universe did it, whatever. It came as insight to people. High Temple of Harmonia. Great to have you here. I'm just about to finish, actually. Littlefish says there's a cave structure near the pyramid. Well, if it is fairly near, then that might be able to be used to look through various things, if the process works. Nathaniel Hanks says, I'll volunteer to walk around with a desmatron camera. Well, you definitely want it off-center from your head or body. You want to look like you got two torpedoes on your shoulders, so that the beam's coming out that way and the disruption beam's going behind. So Otto Nomig says, I've got to deliver another one a little bit at the end, which I'm nearly there. Okay, please go to the chat on remoteview.icu for this blog. I will try and answer any questions and share the references there in the coming days. I've got an update for the Matsumoto book to share with you. I've solved the equation issues and how to do those, and so that's all good. So that'll be coming soon. Thank you very much again for all of the donations today. You've been very generous, and I'm going to give another shout out for everyone. So Laszlo, Claire Westwood, Laszlo Pat, Vanilla Isis, Skoggy Hoggins, Beninator, Contraption, thank you very much for that. Skoggy Hoggins again. Mark Dame, thank you very much for that huge donation. It's really appreciated. I hope I've said your name right. Matthew Reynolds, thank you very much. Thank you, Skoggy Hoggins, and thank you, Gary Johnson. That's really kind of you. Very, very generous. That really helps. Okay, so this was... Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? A little bit crazy. 2. My name is Bob Greenyer. I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Buenas noches. Dobranoc. Good night.